What's going on, guys and gals? Matt and Wanda back again. Today we're talking about our new tent. This is our 3FUL 1.5P leaning tower, or what gets affectionately called the Lanshan 1.5. We've had this tent for a few months, but thanks to COVID we haven't been able to get out and use it as much as we wanted to, so it took us a little bit to get this review together, but we've got our thoughts on the Lanshan 1.5P, so let's take a look. The tent from 3FUL does come in 3 different colors. It comes in the red, which I have. It also comes in a black, and it comes in a white. First, we're going to talk about the specs on this tent. Now, this is a double wall, non-freestanding tent, so you do need stakes to stake out this tent. It does come with 12 supplied tent stakes, and I do suggest using all 12 stakes. I'll show you why you're going to want to use all 12 stakes as we go around the tent. Outer tent material is a 15D sill nylon. The bathtub floor material is a 20D sill nylon, and the inner tent is no-seam mesh. And as I mentioned, this is a non-freestanding tent, so you do need to stake it out, and it does not come with a supplied pole, so you can either use a trekking pole or you can find a stick along the way. This tent does come with a stuff sack as well as a stuff sack for the stakes. Just the tent itself, which is the rainfly and the bug nesh, is 1,035 grams or 35 1/4 ounce, which is just a hair over 2 pounds. The 12 included stakes are 134 grams or 4 3/4 of an ounce. And the lightweight stuff sack is 40 grams or 1 3/8 of an ounce. With the specs out of the way, let's take a look at some of the features of this tent. Let's start with the front, and we'll start with the door of the tent. At the door of the tent, you've got a number 3 YKK waterproof zipper. In my experience from testing this with the sprinkler at home for a few hours and also riding out some storms while out on trail, this has held up for me. I have not had any water come through the door or the zipper. Zipper works awesome. And as well, on the front of the tent, you've got your main support guy out. You've got matching vents on either side of the tent at the peak. You've got this little bar here with a Velcro. It attaches here to help hold that, keep it pushed out so that you get airflow coming through the top of the tent. The ventilation in this tent is pretty good. We'll cover one side of the tent because the other 3 are all exactly the same. In the middle, you've got a structural pullout, and you've also got a pullout on the bottom of the tent. Pullouts on the side definitely do help with opening up the inside of the tent. This pullout here is directly connected through to the bug netting, so when you pull this pullout, it actually pulls the bug netting out quite a bit as well, which gives you more space inside and gives you more livability inside the tent. So these are pretty key, I do find, for having a more comfortable experience inside the tent. And then when we get to the bottom of the tent, you've got your 2 corner pullouts, which are important for the structure of the tent, and then you've got these ones at the side here. These pullouts on the side aren't really super important for the structure of the tent, but what they do, and you'll notice here, when I loosen this off, the rainfly drops right down to the ground. Now, the first time I slept out in this tent, I didn't do the side pullouts. I didn't think I needed to do them, and I found I got condensation inside the tent because this drops right down and seals almost right tight against the ground, so you get no airflow from underneath. But what I found is extending this guy line out almost as far as you can, and then pulling it a little bit taut, you do get quite a bit of room underneath here, and it helps promote airflow underneath the tent, which goes through and it'll come out through the top there. So this tent actually does breathe fairly well when you do have all the pullouts used. So when they send you 12 tent stakes, there's a reason for it. I do suggest using all 12 when you stake this tent out. Being a 1.5P, this is significantly bigger inside than your standard 1-person tent. Let's open this thing up and take a look at the room inside. First thing you're going to notice is how huge the vestibule is. You can fit an entire Wanda inside the vestibule. You could easily fit 2 people's worth of gear underneath this vestibule. It's actually been really nice because I'm able to store my pack, and I've been storing a little bit of firewood underneath my vestibule as well to keep dry, so if we get rain overnight I can still have a little bit of a fire in the morning. So yeah, so far I'm absolutely loving the absolute massive vestibule in this thing. The vestibule on this tent is bigger than the vestibules on either side of my Hubba Hubba NX from MSR. So yeah, huge vestibules on this tent. The overall footprint of the tent when it is fully set up, 2.6 meters long, 1.7 meters wide, and it stands 1.3 meters tall at the peak. And the inner of this is quite substantial, being a 1.5P. It's a full 2.3 meters long by 1 meter wide on the inside. There's tons of room. As you can see, my sleeping pad, which is a standard width mummy sleeping pad, my Thermarest Evolite, and Wanda's standard width closed cell foam 1/2 inch thick sleeping pad. My sleeping pad covers hers by about a 1/2 inch. As is standard on most tents, you've got this nice little loop and toggle so you can roll the door back and it holds the door out of the way for you. Now as we're transitioning to the inside of the tent, if any of you guys and gals were wondering, how do you actually go about setting up one of these tents? I will have a video coming out very soon on the full setup of this tent. So just something for you guys to look forward to. To access the inner bug net portion of the tent, you've got a zipper door, very nice sizable door. And as with the outer wall of the tent, there's a toggle and a loop to secure the mesh door up out of the way as well. To give you an idea of the amount of space inside this tent, Wanda's sleeping pad tucks underneath mine by about an inch, and I've got room, if I wanted to, I can have my pack inside the tent at the bottom, and there's plenty of room for Wanda and myself inside. So very roomy tent for the two of us. And to give you an idea of the livable space inside the tent, with my pack still down at the bottom, plenty of room for me and this girl. I've got plenty of clearance up above my head. So you can see here up above me where this pullout is, and it's pulled up away from me. Without this piece connected, the bug netting definitely does drape down. So I definitely do suggest using all the pullouts when you set this tent up. If you like being a little bit more comfortable when you sleep, right now I'm on top of my Amok Fuel. This is a long, wide sleeping pad. So this is wider than a standard width, and my feet are not touching. I am 5'10" and a half on the side of the pad here. I mean, I've got plenty of room between the sidewall on either side, plenty of room above my head. As for features inside the tent, you've got one hanging hook on the inside at the top and one mesh storage pocket on the far side of the tent opposite the door. We've looked at all the features. I can assure you guys the craftsmanship on this thing is absolutely top notch. I can put this up next to my MSR Hubba Hubba, and this thing is just as well made as my MSR Hubba Hubba. Now, where this is far different than my MSR Hubba Hubba is the price. You can pick up this tent for $132 US, which comes to just under $200 Canadian. This is a borderline ultralight option at the sub $200 price point. That's absolutely massive. That's where this tent is gonna be a huge winner, is for somebody looking for a budget ultralight option. There are a couple downsides to the tent, and we're gonna talk about one right now. One of the biggest downsides to this tent is actually these side pullouts right here that I've raved about a little bit in this review, but these pullouts here, there's one on the head and the foot end and one on the side. These three pullouts here are not sealed, so you will have to get a little bit of silicone seam sealant and seal these. It is a little bit of a pain in the ass, and there's a little bit of a downside to picking up one of these tents, but at the price point of $132 US, it's really hard to complain. Now let's talk about our thoughts on it. So far this tent has performed perfectly for what we wanted. I was looking for a lighter tent. I was carrying a 2-person MSR Hubba Hubba. I needed enough room inside the tent for myself and her. Now, I don't do a ton of tenting trips, so I wasn't about to go and drop the kind of money on a Z-Pax Altaplex or one of the Plexamids, or, you know, one of those Cuban fiber tents. So the price point on this 3FUL tent was absolutely bomber. Now, full disclosure, guys and gals, this tent was sent to me by 3FUL to check out and review. But would I pay the money for this tent? I absolutely would. I think this thing is absolutely worth the price. I mean, you could double the price on this tent, and I still think it would be worth picking up. As I said, the only real con to this tent for me is the seam sealing required on the pullouts, and that was pretty minor. Being a hammock camper, I'm pretty used to having to seam seal my own tarps and shelters and stuff like that, so I had plenty of seam sealer kicking around the house anyways, and it's super easy to seam seal these pullouts. So if you guys are looking for a ultralight budget option, something a little bit bigger than a standard 1-person tent, I know for myself personally, I think those things kind of feel like coffins, so I'm not a huge fan of standard 1-person tents. And taking her with me on my backpacking trips, having the room inside to fit myself and her is absolutely key for me. So if that's something you guys are looking for, and you're looking for a tent that's a little bit bigger than your standard 1-person. Another big thing for me was the fact that this tent only sets up with 1 trekking pole. I don't ever carry 2 trekking poles anymore. I tried it. I tried the 2 trekking pole system, and I found it really annoying, and I found I was only ever really using 1. So I went down to 1 trekking pole. So the single trekking pole tent, as I said, to have enough room for her and myself inside is huge for me, so that's another big win. So far, this thing has held up really well in some pretty sketchy conditions. I've had it out in some pretty decent wind. I've tested it a bunch of times at home with the hose, and I ran the sprinkler over it for a couple hours. We've got rain down out on trail. We've had no water inside. We've had pretty minimal condensation issues. Being a double wall tent, it is kind of nice that the condensation goes on the rain fly and it doesn't go in the inner mesh, so you're not really getting wet. But the condensation on the outer fly has actually been pretty minimal, I found so far. I think a lot of that attests to doing all the pullouts, so using all 4 tent stakes that this thing comes with, especially the bottom ones on the side, definitely helps open up and promotes airflow throughout the tent. I have noticed more condensation when I don't do those pullouts, so definitely worth doing the 12 stakes that this thing comes with. That's our thoughts on it so far. Wanda and I have really been enjoying this tent. I mean, aside from sleeping on the ground, as you guys know, I love my hammock, but you know, when it comes to hiking and backpacking, I definitely don't always get to pick where I'm going to sleep. There are some trips where I definitely do have to take a tent. And yeah, we've been extremely happy with our 3F UL 1.5P leaning tower tent, or the Lanshan 1.5. So if you guys like this one, you guys are looking for some more lightweight backpacking tips and maybe some lightweight backpacking gear ideas, what I've got up over here is a playlist full of videos that I've made on lightweight backpacking and the gear associated with that. So when you guys are done checking out this one, head over there, pick a video out of that playlist. And as always, guys, I am Matty. Thank you all so dang much for watching. And Wanda and I will see you guys on the next one.